What's up, guys? Scott Krueger here with Wave Water Arts. This is Seated Meditation, episode 14. This is episode 2 of season 2. So, first season was kind of they were all filmed in a block in springtime, early spring. And then I didn't film any for a couple months. And now that summer's kind of winding down and we're slowly transitioning into fall, at least in the northern hemisphere here in North America. For you southern hemispheres, you're probably going to spring. So spring is a lovely time. All the seasons are a lovely time. And the focus of this episode today is going to be centered around the idea and the conversation that I had with a very special person through Facebook last night. And he brought something clearly to my attention, and I hadn't really thought about it much, but he's like, Scott, man, this Wave Water Arts, this idea, it's great. It's lovely. Just be careful that you don't drown yourself with too much water. He didn't actually say, well, that was kind of what he said, but what he meant was, don't forget the other elements. And the other elements are very important to research into, study their principles, study how those elements behave, because we are influenced by all these elements. So the other elements, of course, are, besides water, is fire, earth, and wind. And these four elements together kind of bring our world into balance. And one of the reasons why I really enjoyed thinking about water, why I like that element, is when we were conceived, when we were in our mother's womb, we were surrounded by water. So I think water is a very safe, it gives me a very calming and peaceful demeanor when I'm around it, when I meditate around it, when I think about it. Basically, as humans, we're 60 to 70% water. So all these ideas that I have about water being the path of least resistance, water, the transformation changes that water can go through, all the elements, in the conversation with my friend last night, all the elements go through these changes. And we especially talked about fire. And when I think about fire as an element, I think danger. The first thought that comes to my mind is watch out so you don't get burned. But that should be, parallel to the idea that with water, too much water and you're going to drown. I was able to take some Jeet Kune Do philosophy and expand upon the idea about having your cup too full. When it's better to have an empty cup that you can pour water into, and you just have to be careful. The idea last night was be careful that you don't pour so much water that it ends up spilling all over and you basically drown. As a metaphor. These are all kind of metaphor, and when I'm talking about these things, I know it's easy to take them as they're being said and real literally, but a lot of what I talk about is the study of knowledge, the study of things we know, even though we can't see them or feel them. That's philosophy. When you're talking about something that you're not actually holding, you can still think about it, expand upon it, take its good properties, or it's learn from the bad properties, because at this point things are starting to not necessarily, I'm trying not to look at things so much as good and bad. When you separate those it breaks the whole apart, and sometimes that's necessary to understand and get benefit from this study of knowledge and philosophy of ideas. But when you end up putting good and bad together, it becomes one. And I'm really starting to try and be more aware of those things and not be so judgmental. When you label things as good and bad, you're for or against. I found that the truth usually lies in the middle, between the two, the center. So going back to this conversation I had with my friend, fire, yes, that element. When we think of fire, we need fire to cook our food, Within our own bodies, there's not a literal fire in our bodies, but we have to maintain a temperature that's close to 100 degrees. 98.6 is usually the average. But this idea that our bodies are held in balance through this heat. Fire, when you think of fire, don't just think of like the flame, think of the heat. The sun. The sun can be considered, fire elemental. It's a big ball of fire, or I'm not sure what it is. I'll have to do some further research into that. But this idea of heat, fire, too much of it is bad, too little of it is bad, so find the balance in the middle. Earth, Earth consists of a lot of things. The nature, the things that grow in nature, the food that we eat comes from the earth. Vegetables, fruits, those grow straight from the earth. The animals that we, the meat that we eat, those animals get bigger through eating earth elements. So, and then wind. Wind is kind of tricky because you can't see wind. You can sometimes see wind, in the clouds, based on the way that the clouds are moving. You can kind of see the pattern of wind, but you can't actually see wind. And that's why wind is kind of tricky. But definitely I'm going to keep, Way of Water Arts is not just centered around water. That was just an idea and a tool to expand upon. All these elements, they can go through all these different changes. And each one of them has good, or has properties that are part of the greater whole. So I was really thankful that I had that conversation. Actually, that was this morning. I think I had that conversation with this friend. And but yeah, that was real important for me. That kind of broadened my view. It broadened my scope a lot more than just to focus necessarily on what water can do for us. Let's look deeper and see what all the other elements, what their properties are, and what we can gain from them, what knowledge and insight. And then the last idea that we kind of talked about was when you have all those elements together, you got the four elements: water, fire, wind, and earth. When you have all those, there was a fifth element that he talked about, and he referred to it as the spirit element. And I'm sure we all have our own idea of what the spirit means. And it's kind of similar to wind in that, you really can't see, wind and spirit, I feel, are pretty highly connected, because you can't see the spirit. You can't physically see the spirit. You can't physically see wind. You can feel it. When wind is, gusting and blowing, you sure feel it, especially if it's cold or you're in a hurricane or something. Wind is a very powerful element, just like all the other ones. But the thing about it, like the spirit, you can't see it. But can you feel the spirit? And can you unlock? Well, not necessarily that you want to unlock, but you want to have a connection. You definitely want to build on your own connection with your spirit, and then the spirit of other things. Spirit and chi, spirit and energy, wind, spirit, energy, wind, those are all kind of similar. You can't really see someone's energy. We have, like I talked about last episode, we have electrical activity within our muscles. So we're more than just flesh and blood. There's some deeper element to us, an energy, a spirit, a wind, or something that extends beyond ourselves. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So I'm not going to go into too much discussion about other dimensions and stuff like that. I don't think that's appropriate yet. But I'm definitely aware that there are different planes of existence that extend beyond our knowledge of time and space. So it's not such a far out idea as some may think. But yeah, that's for another episode. So like I said, I'll just recap quickly about what this episode was about. This is Seated Meditation, episode 14. We're in season 2, episode 2, and we're at the end of the summer season. and kind of starting to transition to fall. And I was talking about not just the good qualities and principles of water, but all the other elements: fire, earth, wind, and able to make some connections with how that works into the spirit. And even though we can't see these things, some of these things, they're evidently there. You know, wind, you can't see it, but you sure can feel it. So I'm really thankful for the conversation I had with that great friend via Facebook. I'm looking forward to more ideas and content for the channel. One of the things that I'm starting to tailor the channel to is the needs of, or you know, the things that you guys want to see. So I definitely want you commenting ideas. Message me through Messenger on Facebook. Let me know what things you would like to think about, because you know, I'm not going to sit here and say I know it all. You know, no one knows it all, and that's stupid to think that someone would know everything. But I definitely want to keep educating myself, helping educate other people. So if you have an idea of something you want me to do a channel about, you know, whether it's healing arts related, martial arts related, or something else, I'm completely open to it. So thank you so much for watching this. Scott Krueger with Way of Water Arts. Inshallah.